We are the ones who can think very unusual, extremely different, and try to take it forward. They may be successful, they may not be, but the world will not laugh if they are successful. It's a different world, a different India. And we, in this campus, Dayananda Sagar University, we had this privilege of thinking beyond pure academics. And we have made a humble beginning. We would be very happy to hear from you, leaders from different segments here. I see a lot of veterans who served the government of India, being distinguished, holding distinguished positions, people from industry and from the other organizations. Please tell us if what we are doing is right and if we can do things better. 3 years ago, the Karnataka government allowed us to set up a private university along with 6-7 others. The task was, what do we do and how do we do it differently? We had in the group 4 lakh square foot space, and it was the property of the promoters. I had the guts to ask my management, can you give that 4 lakh square foot space to me? And I was asked, what would I do? I said, I will set up a startup village. It was a story. There was no foundation, there was no reference. And until then, we were producing engineers in very large numbers, management graduates, IT professionals, just everybody, all disciplines. But then, and we were also extremely happy patting our back that we have been giving 100% placement. And at some point of time, we realized 5 years, 6 years, 7 years later, many of these people quit industry. The burnout rate is very high. And what could we do? Is placement the only option, and is placement the only end game for an academic campus? How could we do things different? And that is how we thought and planned and set up a startup village. That is India's first experiment in an academic campus. Now, what inspired Dayananda Sagar to set up the startup village? India produces the largest engineering talent versus what is the reality? Even electronic mobiles, electronic components, everything is imported into this country. I always see this as a funny situation. Huge number of engineers coming out of across the country, and 80% of these engineering grads not getting jobs. Industry captains making statements that these 80% are unemployable. So there was something very, there is a huge disconnect and there was no logic. So we thought of what can be done. Again, India itself presents a captive market. Could we not work on this situation, exploit it? China never invented bullet trains. Japan did it. But then today China produces some of the best bullet trains, and they come to India and say, buy my trains. Now, what is the background? India has got the largest rail network, the oldest, and our iron ore is very sought after, and still China has the guts to come and tell India, buy my trains. Will we do that? Should we do that? Okay. Again, when government of India has to keep on buying weapons and different requirements for the defense systems, there is always the offset clause, and which says every purchase order, please buy, 30% has to be procured from smaller companies and or from within India. And when the time for delivery happens, the supplier says, no, I can't implement or honor this for 30% offset clause because India is not ready. The transfer of technology does not happen. So the buyer invariably ends up telling, okay, I waive this order and you supply. Aren't these issues to be challenged? Now this is the question. Now who should do it? Can anybody do it? Trade bodies, industry bodies, or can an academic campus do it? Now, if an academic campus is our role only to produce engineers and PhDs, etc., and graduates, master graduates, or can we do things differently? That was the question which bothered us. And we thought of providing solutions. DSU, Dayananda Sagar University, saw an opportunity to provide real answers to India's immediate needs. The gaps presented huge business opportunities for India's young population. The vision was to empower the youth by providing a platform and the required ecosystem where innovative and disruptive ideas could flourish. So we are talking of 18-year-olds. We have already seen the initial success. Now, when my American friends come and we brag about this and say 18-year-old boys are becoming industry founders, American professors from big universities, they say, don't brag about it, you become old. I asked them, are you referring to me? I'm really old. They said, no. 8-year-old boys, girls in the US are setting up companies. So, as Sandhya was telling, things change so fast. You don't do it tomorrow and yesterday. I mean, it's gone. So 18-year-olds doing something, setting up a company is no more innovative from a global context. So our kids in school got to do something much faster. And we again, in January 5, 6, 7, we experimented with about 95 schools. Each school sending 4 sets of students, all from urban and semi-urban schools. End of 3 days, we saw 3 girls coming from a semi-urban school producing 3 apps. It happened in our campus. These are not our students, they could not afford good quality education, but from a very, very ordinary BU college. It happened in our own campus. And what did we do? Because we had to comply with the requirements of society, parents, especially the mother, uncle, aunt, everybody. If I tell 18-year-old boy, come into my campus, you can set up a company, you have a dream, a disruptive idea, we will support. Fine, the boy is excited, the girl is excited. But the parents, the father may be excited, the mother is always influenced. So what is this? You 18-year-old boy wants to become an entrepreneur, set up a company. What if it does not take off? So we said 3 things. This boy, girl sets up a company, aligns with interested group for 4 or 5, there's a mentor, and 4 years later the reward is a BTech degree. This ideas get transformed into setting up a company. Now 80% on day 1 we tell in events like this, 80% of all these startups are bound to fail. Are you game? Now what happens, the question comes, what happens to people whose companies do not take forward, go forward, are not successful? And the option is they put back into the placement cycle. But when the placement happens, we tell all companies who want the purists. Who's the purist? 80, 90%, 60% or 85, 90% computer science, mechanical, electronics, etc. They're all the purists. What they did, all the 4 years they were in classroom, they wrote their exams on time, got good degrees. They are purists. They can start their career as a startup, as a starter in a large company, and I always refer this to as matchsticks in a matchbox. One will not be distinguished with the other. There's a spark and you light it, so from the matchbox you become a matchstick with no head. Now 4 or 5 years, 10 years later, we see any number of people all from a nice matchstick inside a matchbox. Your purpose is over and you're out on the footpath. Somebody walks on you, there is nobody crying for you. Now this is one option. Now this is for the purists. Now for the others, we got this BTech in computer technology and entrepreneurship, one of its kind. 18-year-old boys, girls, after a national test, are admitted into this program. 4 years later, they get a degree. They walk out with a company and a product, a company listed in the Delhi Bombay Stock Exchange. And if this idea is extremely creative, probably in the New York Stock Exchange. Now there are people with funds who are given a check. All that we have to do is get these boys and girls to present their ideas, and so passionate, they have to prove it continuously to everybody who says no, your idea will not take off. If they are able to convince investors and a mentor. Now who's a mentor? He comes, if he is accepted by this 18-year-old boys and girls, and this mentor should have proven, done hands-on work, and you should have dirtied and proven to have set up a company, worked as an entrepreneur, or he could have been successful or failed. But then he knows the domain skills. He says, I like this idea, I will become a mentor of this company, young company. Now 18-year-old boys, girls do a recruitment of their mentor of an age group, typically in this very hall. Now in reward, a mentor gets 10%, Dayananda Sagar, for having taken all this effort and sacrifice, we get 20%. Now out of 200 companies, if 40%, 20% become successful. Now what is the reward for the mentors who lose out? All mentors are equally good, they would have contributed collectively. The reverse of insurance will happen. Now what is reverse of insurance? All of you know insurance, we spread risk, but in Dayananda Sagar University, the startup village, the reward to all mentors is success is spread. So the 20% of the companies which do well, that success is spread across all the mentors. because they would have worked hard, they have done their work towards the same objective, yet they are rewarded very handsomely. That is one of these things. Now, what is the outcome? Industry supported, and we have the giants which have come here. They have supported, they have set up the lab, they have heard our story, and here again I see all the important dignitaries are here to represent some of the finest institutions in India. I'm looking for mentors to come, large industry bodies to come, see what we are doing. If you buy the story, do the hand-holding. Now, how will the industry gain? The industry of a failed entrepreneur, they are rewarded with people who have gone through the entrepreneurship journey. They will do extremely well. Now, the recruitment process, this was a question asked in a very large forum. It has industry experts, academia, entrepreneurship and funding agencies. So I've covered most of it. To answer Mr. Hari's one point, I want to tell you, nurses trained also get a chance. Nurses who have been ignored, are also trained in this very campus, and we have a very unique lab contributed by GE technicians, engineers come. Now, after this training, they can sit with a doctor or a biomedical engineer and explain how a high-end scanning machine or an MRI machine works. Now, you see the profile of an Indian nurse trained in Dayananda Sagar University. We are talking not of engineers and managers, IT professionals, or biological engineers. Again, biological engineers, my previous speaker will be happy to know. First semester girl or boy will work on research. Will do what will be a research topic. How do I grow gold in my lab? Thank you.